It just keeps getting worse for the BBC as the company deals with the fallout of its very public, humiliating bias scandal. British homes, by the hundreds of thousands, are refusing to pay their license fee. Well, CBN's Trey Goins-Phillips joins us now. Trey, let me read you something from The Guardian. It says, the number of households to state they have no need for a license because they do not consume BBC content has risen from 2.4 million in 2021 to 3.6 million this year. That equates to a loss of up to 617 million pounds from potential fees. So, Trey, what's your thought on the BBC just losing influence?
Well, I mean, I think this is something that's been going on for a long time. We've talked about it here at CBN News. I know we've covered it kind of extensively on the Quick Start podcast that we put out every weekday morning. And we often talk about these stories of people losing trust in media, but it's not without cause. Now, the BBC has been going down this road for quite some time. They've had this issue for years, similar to a lot of the legacy media outlets here at home in the United States. But of course, all of this kind of reached the tipping point in early November when the BBC, I'm reading from our CBN News report, the BBC apologized Monday for the, quote, error of judgment the organization made when it doctored comments made by President Trump on January 6th, 2021 to make it look like he was inciting violence. So, it was an error in judgment. No, you just lied. You just made up a story by deceptively editing what it was that the then president and now again president said at the time about what was going on January 6th. So I think when you've created this atmosphere of they may be telling the truth or they may be serving an agenda of their own, and people have to, no matter what your political view, people have to wonder and ask that question when they're consuming content. It's no wonder trust in your organization is eroding.
Yeah, and it's pervasive. It's actually kind of getting a little scary in the sense that no one trusts anything anymore. I mean, let's just go down a couple of the lists, right? If you would have said words like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or Wuhan lab for a couple of years there, you'd be deplatformed, in certain places in the world. The police would come and knocking on your door for even questioning the narrative, or you say Hunter Biden laptop and good gracious, you are kicked off platforms, you are deplatformed. And so people have been like, wait a second. Not only are you allowed to lie, obviously that's what the BBC, I mean, it's not even kind of a small lie, it's egregious. I mean, they edited video from an hour apart and smushed it together to make it sound like President Trump was saying basically go storm the Capitol. Not only are you lying, but this like overarching weird government thing where it's like government media, like you can't say this, we are going to be deplatformed. It created this thing where people are like, all right, I'm done. I don't trust the legacy media. I don't trust the elites. I don't trust this weird global government thing. But the problem with that, Trey, is that people have started trusting voices that are just blatantly anti-Semitic. I mean, the things I'm seeing online, as a student of the Holocaust, as someone who will proudly stand with the Jewish people, good gracious, it is just 1930 stuff online on Twitter. I mean, it's the same posters. It's literally the same posters from the 1930s. Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that are being tweeted a lot and said a lot with confidence. And so people buy it, and it's like, good night, guys. Like, I don't ever want to become inflammatory. And so my goal is when I see vile content that's just blaming the Jews or, these wild conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying what's all true, or I don't want to even go down that route. I just think it's important. It's incumbent upon us as believers in Yeshua to check our heart, because it's really easy. There's something inside of us that wants to blame someone else, that doesn't want to take responsibility for certain things. It's those people. And God kind of brought me to this verse, and it might seem kind of out of left field, but here it is. Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So don't conform to envy, don't conform to jealousy, don't conform to anger, don't conform to bitterness, don't conform to scapegoating, gaslighting, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind so that we can think clearly with the Holy Spirit governing our hearts and mind. Let me leave it at this. I think if social media is toxic, it's incumbent upon us to be alkaline living water. So it'd be really easy to start a channel and just start joining the choir of bashing people and being inflammatory for the sake of clicks. But man, like I think it's our responsibility to bring light, love, shalom. And I know shalom doesn't get a lot of clicks, but who cares? Like let's be purveyors of the gospel, of truth, of justice, of light, and just to be a place where people can think clearly. And hopefully that's what we're trying to create here at CBN News, where ultimately we serve the Prince of Peace, and we hope to encourage people that watch to invite him into their hearts, because ultimately it's not what's happening out there that is the real problem. Obviously, lots of problems out there, but first it's in here. That's the real problem. But Trey, I'll give you the last word, my friend.
With stories like this, I also can't help but think of several Proverbs, but the one that came to mind is Proverbs 10:9. It says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out." And I think, of course, that verse applies to what's going on here with the BBC, but also I think to your larger point, Raj, it applies to all of us. Look, I think it makes sense that people go to inflammatory characters. They run to the Candace Owens of the world, to even the Nick Fuenteses of the world when they see these kinds of stories. It's because they're angry, right? They see a strong person who can stick it to the man. It's like they need to be called out for their lies. But all of that, I think, is fueled by hate and anger and divisiveness, all of those things that you just said. And as Christians, we ought to be the light givers, the people that say, look, there's a third option. There's another way here. This stuff that's happening in our mainstream legacy media, that's evil. It's deceptive. It's lying. It's gaslighting all of us, and it's a problem. The same thing can be said of the other side. This is inflammatory. It's hateful. It's divisive. It's intended to rip us apart. Both of them are problems in different ways, for sure, but both are problems. And as Christians, we ought to say there's a gospel option here, and that is to pursue ultimate capital T truth as we try to parse these things that we're dealing with in our culture.